Hey guys, this is me Edwin. Today I'm going to show you how I created these series of photos using the face stretch technique in Photoshop. Now that we're here in Photoshop, you want to start off by finding a photo that is pretty simple. You want to choose a photo that has a simple colored background and a model that has simple colored clothes. This effect uses the smudge brush, and we're going to use the pen tool to create a path so we can tell the smudge brush on what path it's going to smudge the photo. Now that you have selected your photo, we want to create the path on what the face stretch would look like. So first of all, you want to start off by going to the pen tool by pressing P, and make sure instead of shape, we want to select path. And make sure when you start creating the path, make it so that the first point is where you want the face stretch to start. That's going to save you a lot of headaches. And the path that I'm doing right now is I'm trying to recreate the original path that I made from the sample. So as you can see, I'm just messing around with the points, making sure that it looks smooth. This is the path that I made. I think it looks pretty nice. If you want to know that you've actually created a path, you want to go to Window and Paths. And you can see that it pops up this window. And if you select on it or deselect on it, you can see that we've just created this path. Now that we've created this, we want to create the colors we want to go on this. You want to first start off by creating a new layer. And make sure your foreground and background color is black and white. Go to Filter, Render, Clouds. So I'm just going to deselect on the path, so we just hide it for a second. And we want to create a gradient map on top of the clouds layer we just made. And we want to clip it. You do that by holding Alt in between the layers so that it only affects the clouds. And now we're going to choose some colors that we want. I'm just going to follow the original photo that we have. And obviously, you can adjust the sliders and make the colors how hard or soft you want the contrast to be. Now we want to create a new layer. This is where we're gonna do the face stretch effect. We want to go to the smudge tool. You can do this by going to the left side of your screen. And you want to select the hard round brush. Make sure the strength is 90%. And we're just going to turn off the clouds layer for a moment. And we're going to click on path. And you want to increase the size of your smudge brush to where you have the face covered, but find a good balance that it doesn't overlap between the other areas of her face. So I think this size is something yeah, so I think that's a good size, maybe 360. Yep. Okay. And make sure when you're at the smudge brush, make sure that sample all layers is also checked. And this is where the effect is going to start. Make sure the work path is clicked. And make sure you're on smudge brush, and make sure you're on the new layer that you just made. Turn on the clouds layer. All of that is checked. You want to press enter. And as you can see, the smudge brush is slowly following the path that we made. And once again, depending on your computer, this effect is going to be heavy. So if we deselect from the work path and turn off the clouds layer, you can see we've created this cool looking 3D stroke effect with just a simple smudge brush and a work path. So I'm going to do that again. This time I'm going to turn off the clouds layer. The reason why I'm doing that is that if you look closely at the original photo, you can see we have a tiny bit of the face being stretched. Later, I'm going to put that on top of the stroke that we just made so we can give off the feeling of that the face is slowly fading into the colored stroke. I'm just going to name this colored stroke. And I'm gonna make a new layer, and I'm gonna name this face stroke. So same thing again, we're gonna click on the work path, go back to the smudge brush, and just press enter. And we're gonna deselect from the work path. I'm gonna create a new group. And within this group, I'm gonna control click on any of these strokes that we made, and I'm gonna apply a layer mask on top of it. And the reason why I'm doing that, because later on we're gonna add a ton of effects on this, and I don't want to create individual layer masks on each layer. So this just makes everything tidier. And I'm gonna add everything inside this group. Now I want to add a layer mask to the face stroke layer. And we're gonna go to our brush tool and select the soft round brush. And I just want to fade some parts of these so that the transition looks a bit softer. As you can see. Now we're gonna add more color to the stroke. If you look closely to this part of the stroke, you can see that it looks a bit plain, and I want a bit more orange within this section. We can do that by firstly duplicating the work path that we made. And we're gonna drag it to this plus sign. And we're gonna drag that again, and that's going to duplicate it. The reason why we're doing that is because if I turn off the stroke layer first, and turn on the gradient map, you could see that wherever the stroke effect started, it's carrying more of the clouds layer color with it, and as it goes along the path, the color gets duller. And we want to create a new path, maybe around this section, so it sort of like refreshes the paintbrush with a new color. Now we want to move the starting point of this new stroke that we made to around this area where you can see the color starts to get duller. And we can do that by simply going to our pen tool by pressing P and highlight the stroke. And you want to add a point to where the area starts to get dull. You just want to simply click on that and delete the other points. And we can now add a new layer. Make sure it's outside of the group. We're going to turn off the colored stroke and turn on the clouds layer that we made. And make sure when you're on your smudge brush again that you are using the same exact size with the original stroke. So mine was 360, and I'm going to click on our new layer, and I'm just going to press enter. Now that's our new stroke, and you can simply turn off the clouds layer again and turn on the stroke layer. And as you can see, the new stroke that we just made, it has some color, but personally I want more orange. And if we want to do that again, we can simply go Control Z, and we can simply move the clouds layer and find an area where there's a more orange. So you can see this is the starting point, and I want a bit more orange, and I'm just gonna move it to some areas that has good color, where there's a good mixture of orange, yellow, and white. And I think this is a good starting point. And I'm just gonna make this bigger. It's because previously there was some pink, and if you smudge it right now, you can see you're going to see pink. So I'm gonna click the new layer. I'm gonna click the new stroke that we made and find a good area where there's a good mix of color. I think that's good. I'm gonna click on layer 2, which is the new layer that we're going to do this new stroke. Go to the smudge brush and press enter. We're gonna turn off this clouds layer, turn off our group 1, put that inside, deselect from the stroke. We're gonna add a new layer mask on this. Or go to our brush tool, and we're just gonna fade the starting area so that it blends more smoothly. And maybe you can mix it. And I only want this part of the stroke. And you can repeat this step again and again until you got something really nice going on. So I'm gonna do that again, but this time I'm just gonna speed it up a bit. So let's say this is your final stroke. Now we want to add a few highlights and shadows and maybe even a bit more color. To do that, create a new layer inside the group. And we're just gonna go to our soft round brush. And we're gonna go to color and pick some colors that go well with the stroke. And I'm gonna choose pink. And I'm just gonna add color where I think it's going to look the best. And I'm gonna double click that. And we're gonna blend it with the bottom stroke. So if you drag these sliders, you're gonna see that it's gonna reveal or hide some parts of the color that we just brushed onto the stroke. So to separate this, you just want to hold Alt. And depending on where you place those sliders or nodes, you can see how strong or soft the effect is. And you can repeat this step as much as you want. So maybe color blue would look nice. Cool. And now we're gonna add some highlights and some shadows. And it's still pretty simple. You just want to create a new layer inside the group. Go to your brush tool, make sure it's black, and you just want to paint on some shadows. And I'm trying to make the light go from top left to the bottom right of my screen. It's not exactly following the light of the photo, but I think it looks nice. And you can just erase some parts of the shadow with E, eraser tool. And you can obviously lower the opacity. And we're gonna add some highlights next. Same thing, this time make it white. And maybe I'm gonna lower the opacity of my brush here, because I wanna make sure that the center of this stroke is highlighted. Maybe make that soft light. Maybe some parts of the highlight are too strong, so I'm just gonna erase that. Now we want to hide some parts of this stroke behind the model. We can simply do that by going to our group 1 and put that inside another group folder. We're gonna apply a layer mask to it. And we're gonna click group 1 and lower the opacity a bit. And go to the layer mask of group 2. And we're gonna zoom in here. I'm just gonna use the default soft round brush and make sure that's black. Make the flow 100%. Obviously, different people have their own techniques on how to apply layer masks onto objects. I'm a bit lazy, so I'm just gonna do this by hand. And if you can't see, you can always press the backslash on your keyboard. And that's gonna turn on or turn off a red overlay. And yeah, that's pretty much it. If you have more time, you can make those layer masks even more precise. The last thing that I would add maybe is add more shadows behind the model. So I'm just going to go back to our group 1 folder and make a new layer. Use our soft round brush. Add a bit of shadow behind her. And yeah, you can make that nicer if you want. And lastly, I guess some finishing touches. We can add some curves to this if you want, or better yet, I think it's going to vibrance and just pump up the color a bit and make sure it's affecting only the group 1, or better yet, I can just drag it here and that's gonna do the same thing. You can add more details to that. You can add a curves effect to it, and maybe final thing, I know I'm repeating myself, but I think this edge is a bit too hard. So I'm going to go to my group 2 folder. I'm just going to soften that a bit. And I think that makes it really nice. Yeah, so that's the effect. It's pretty easy. It makes the client think you've exerted a lot of effort into this, but actually it's pretty simple. If you want to see more tutorials about different techniques that I've learned throughout my years, or just me messing around with Photoshop, consider subscribing. I have a lot more videos planned. If you find anything also on my Instagram page that you need more explanation, drop that down in the comments below and I'll be happy to explain it. That's all for now. See you on the next video. Bye.